Hello fellow scribes, welcome to my cliff and dungeon wall tutorial showcase. In this video I will demonstrate how I intended these paths to be used, but remember, this is just a suggestion. Use them however works best for your project, as long as you're having fun creating maps and dungeons. Let's get started. Each cliff and dungeon wall path includes two edge styles, a grass edge and rocky edge. You also find both shadowed and shadowless versions. Why this matters will become clearer later. Every path comes in at least two sizes, a standard single gridded version and a large two-grid version. Some also include smaller paths. This is because Dungeondraft loses resolution when scaling up paths, so larger versions are needed for big cliffs. Now let's dive into the tutorial. Here's an example of a large shadowless path. Thanks to the amazing work of mod creator Uchidashi34 and his Colorable Objects and Paths mod, we can now recolor paths directly in Dungeondraft. That's why I removed my old color variations. Now a single cliff path can do it all. Here's how it works. First, make the path gray by clicking this button. Then pick any color you like and even adjust the brightness. Instead of hundreds of preset variations, you can now choose one path style and make it in any color you need. A grassy outcropping, now a desert cliff, with just a few clicks. Using a single grid shadowless cliff path, we can stack one cliff under the another to create a multi-story look. Then we add terrain to the upper and lower sections. Just like that, we create a layered cliff platform. Bear in mind you can either draw patterns to terrain as upper plateau of the cliff, but I found the terrain blends more naturally, and you can change them with one click on terrain dialog. Now let's add shadows. Assuming the light comes from the upper left or the lower right, we'll base our shadows on that direction. There are two methods. The traditional way uses a shadow both sides, 40% path, enable fade on both ends, set the size to 0.5 points and draw along the shadow then. The new method, thanks again to Uchidashi34, is his edge blur mode. Here's how. Draw a black pattern of the shadow area, enable edge blur, and adjust the blur range and smoothness. Don't worry if it looks too dark, we can fix that in a moment. The best part, you can adjust the shadow anytime by editing the pattern points. Finally, go to the pattern's color settings and lower color A, alpha or transparency to around 100. It usually works best. And there you have it, an adjustable shadow. Repeat this process for any other areas or reuse this same pattern for all cliff shadows. Next, let's create a closed cliff face. Start by selecting your desired cliff path and draw the shape of the rocky hill, making sure to close the loop. Notice how the path begins on the edge of the grid. This helps indicate which parts are impassable terrain and which areas remain accessible. Now, add the terrain to the top and bottom of the cliff. Just like that, we have a grassy rocky hill. If you want a rocky top instead, switch the path to the rock edge version. Then use cave shadow a short shadow path to define the rocky top edge. Recolor the edge path to blend with either the cliff face or the top terrain. You'll notice Dungeondraft creates an unwanted scene when closing a path. To fix that, use the shadowless rocky edge path, set the width to around 0.8, enable fade on both sides and draw a small segment over the scene. Bring a cave shadow path to the front and the scene disappears. Want a taller, steeper hill than a single path allows? Just grab the larger version of the path and place it beneath the main one. This creates the illusion of a higher cliff and even allows for cave entrances or elevation changes on the same hill. Now let's make an open cliff accessible from one side. Select your cliff path, enable the Grow Shrink option and draw the shape of the cliff face. The ends might look sharp or unnatural, but we'll fix that by adding points to each end to smooth them out. Next, use Cave Shadow 1 short shadow path to add the cliff top edge. Again, enable Grow and Shrink and adjust the endpoints to match the main path. Now add terrain. Try different textures until you get the look you want. Once you're happy with the terrain, use the Colorable Objects and Path mod to recolor the cliff edge path so it blends with the cliff face. You can sample colors from either the cliff or the terrain. This system gives you tons of flexibility. By swapping terrain and adjusting color, you can quickly shift from a grassy cliff to a desert bluff in just a few clicks. It's a fast, creative way to build natural-looking, varied cliff formations. Now let's move on to dungeon wall cliff paths. I like using Cliff 6 rock no shadow, but feel free to choose any path that fits your target. Set the smoothness to 0.5, then draw your dungeon. The path snaps to the grid, giving you precise control over what's wall and what's an open space. Next, use Cave Shadow 1 short shadow path to add the overwall edge. Notice how the cliff and overwall paths have different grid points, making editing easier without overlap issues. Now, add terrain. Maybe rocky edge near the walls, with broken cobblestone in the center. Don't worry if the cliff color doesn't match the terrain, we'll fix that with colorable objects and paths. Color both of the main cliff and overwall paths to blend everything together. For the outside of the dungeon, use terrain to mark impassable terrain. Bonus tip: if you've already drawn your cliff path and want to expand the dungeon, Split Path mode, again thanks to Chideshi34 John, lets you delete a point to open the path. You can now continue building to or add a new access point without redrawing entire dungeon. Just note, this resets the path color, but you can easily recolor it by copying the color code and repeating the coloring process. As always, the system gives you full creative freedom. You can adjust terrain, recolor cliffs, and change biome or dungeon style at any time, even after placing the path. That's it for this tutorial. I hope you found something useful, or at least gained a fresh perspective on familiar techniques. And as always, have fun. That's the main rule. Enjoy!